And we're live. Good afternoon. My name is Natalie, and well, wherever you are, if it's afternoon for us. Good afternoon. My name is Natalie, and you're listening to the Mental Money Podcast. Thank you for coming back. If you're coming back, and if this is your first time, thank you for joining us. Today, I have with us Mr. Bryan Clayton of GreenPal. Bryan, tell us a little bit about your company. I think you have an interesting story, and I'm interested to hear about your acquisition, which is why we have you on today. So, please tell us a little bit about your story because again, we're gonna be speaking about your acquisition.
Okay.
As a business owner, I'm sure some of us hope to get acquired one day. So I'm really interested to hear about how that kind of worked out for you.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. So, currently CEO, co-founder of GreenPal. It's a mobile app that works like Uber for lawn
Mhm,
mowing services. Nationwide in
mhm.
the United States, around 300,000 people using the app to get lawn mowing done. GreenPal is a
Awesome.
10-year overnight success. My two co-founders and I have been at this business for over a decade, and now we've grown it to over 300 cities and 300,000 people using it. But before GreenPal, I
Awesome.
actually had a landscaping company that I ran for 15
Mhm,
years. I started mowing grass in high school as a way to make extra cash and stuck with that lawn mowing
mhm,
business all through high school and all through college. And little by little, grew it into an actual company, eventually getting it to 150 employees, 10 million a year in sales. And then in 2013, it was acquired by a national organization. So 22
mhm.
years in kind of one industry, and and I had to navigate the transition from a blue collar entrepreneur to a tech entrepreneur. But it's been a lot of fun.
Right.
Very, very, very blessed to have been exposed to business ownership at such a young age.
Right. So why landscaping? What was attractive about that particular market, even if you didn't know at the time, but knowing what you know now that made you go into landscaping at the time?
Yeah, I'd like to tell you that I had a plan and I was just working a plan, and but the reality is when I was a young kid, my dad got tired of watching me play Nintendo, and he said, "Get off your butt! You're going to go mow the neighbor's yard." So he made me go cut the neighbor's grass, and so that's how I got my
Mm,
first customer, was by force, and something about that stuck with me. I made $20 for an hour of work, and I thought, this is awesome. I'm just going to keep doing this. And so I saw
right.
business ownership as my lane, and I stuck with that lawn care business year by year, growing it, almost treating it like a video game. Working at
Mhm,
one level at a time. And when I graduated college, I probably had 3 or 4 employees, and business that was grossing $500,000 a year in sales, and so I had to make a decision. Was I going to go into the job market or stick with this lawn mowing business? I really
yeah,
didn't want to be a lawn guy my whole life. It's not really what I set out to do. But I saw business ownership could be my lane, could
mhm,
be the thing that helps carry me places in life that I otherwise never would be able to do. And so I just said, well, I can build a big business in this industry. Let's go for it. And I made a little business plan, and I was lucky in the sense that I was in Nashville, Tennessee, which Middle Tennessee was booming in the 90s and in the
mhm,
2000s. It still is. So
yeah,
there was new shopping centers and office parks and homeowners associations that needed my services,
mhm,
and so there was always new opportunities to grow the business alongside the community.
right.
And so it was a lot of things worked out, and had kind of my wind at my back, I guess you could say.
Got you. So, okay, so luck a little bit, just a little bit of luck, a really good parent that was perceptive and not wanting you to just kinda, like, sit on your behind. I can get with that, having a toddler. Yeah, I can kinda get with that, and then also, something that struck me as interesting is that you first of all, you've stuck with it for such a long time, which is not very common nowadays, right? I feel like most people try to ride the winds of whatever kind of is trending. So, how did you f how did you know that this was something that would continue to be lucrative? Did you see any changes in the trends? And then why'd you still decide to go to school even though you had such a successful business?
Yes, really good question. So, looking back, I think one thing that makes sense is the least glamorous the business, the least sexy the business idea, the greater your chances of success. And that's kind of how it was for me. The landscaping business in my market was not one that, it wasn't like nobody was doing it. There was a lot of competition, but nobody was doing it really well. And so
Mhm,
I could take best practices from other industries and apply them to this industry and this market. And what I was learning in business school, I could apply to the landscaping industry and kind of professionalize what it is we were doing. Don't get me wrong, there were several very well run competitors that were operating at scale, but there was opportunities for more. And so I was able to kind of
mhm,
take what I was learning professionally in business school, and then learning from other markets around me, whether it be Atlanta, Chicago, or even St. Louis, that were bigger cities than Nashville, and learn from companies that were bigger in those markets and apply it to what I was doing. So
mhm,
that's and I think if you can kind of combat bright shiny object syndrome, where you just stick with one thing for 5 or 10 or 15 years, I think um, time and compounding just does its thing.
mhm,
If you're
yeah,
a lot of times really big successes and and great things get confused for just consistency. You know, somebody was just
mhm,
consistent on one thing for a long period of time, and that's how it was for me. It wasn't I was never particularly talented or brilliant or bright. I just picked one industry, decided, okay, I'm gonna stick with this for however long it takes to be successful.
right. No, that makes sense, okay. Now, well, you didn't answer the question just quite yet about why you still decided to go to school.
Great question. So I went to business school thinking, well, I'm going to learn all this stuff about how to run a business, and then I'm going to
Mhm,
be able to, you know, beat the pants off my competition.
right,
And it was a strange thing. I was mowing yards during the day and running my business during the day and going to school at night. And so that took me like 6 years to get it done. But I kept waiting for this, like the secrets that they were going to give me
right,
in business school.
yeah,
And there was a disconnect between what I was learning in business school and what I was actually practicing running a real business. Not a big one, but you know, $500,000-600,000 a year. And and I was like, this is not how business is actually conducted.
no,
This is not how a marketing plan really works. This is not
no,
how you recruit employees, and so all these weird things. So I probably could have gotten where I am today without going to college, to be honest. But it was one of those things that I just made a decision. I was going to get my degree, and I don't know why I thought it was important. You know, other than I just wanted to see it through and have a backup plan. But
yeah,
looking back, I probably didn't have to do that. It didn't really wouldn't have made one difference or the other in what I've managed to do in business.
right, no, that makes sense, okay. So, you decide to go to school, end up finding out that this is not even really what they're really teaching you, and have to learn through the school of hard knocks like all the rest of us, right?
That's right.
And what was I gonna ask you? So, alright, so you're now in this market and you have to get really intimate with not only what makes you a great landscaper, but what also makes your competitor a great landscaper. What were some of your differentiators?
Yeah, it's a very competitive business, and it's one that is can be commoditized, where it's like, you know, they're
Mhm,
kind of all the same, and then you
right,
start selling on price. And so I had to figure out what our value proposition was,
right,
what it is we were doing different than our competitors. And I
mhm,
still have to do this today with GreenPal. What does GreenPal do 10 times better than the alternative? And so every business has a value proposition,
mhm,
and you you need to go through the exercise of understanding what that is. And so is if I'm your ideal prospect,
mhm,
why would I choose to do business with you versus anybody else?
right,
And that answer to that question should always start with because. Well, because this is the only way to get X, Y, or Z service without doing
mhm,
this other thing.
right,
With GreenPal, it's the only way to get a lawn mowing the same day without making a phone call, even if your grass is 4 feet tall. That's the value
mm,
proposition. And so with my first business, I beat my head against the wall for years, like upset that my competition was underpricing me and that I was having to compete on price. And then I realized, you know, we weren't differentiated. We weren't doing anything different than they were. In fact, we were all selling the same thing, just landscape.
Competing on price.
Yeah,
Right.
and so that's why we were having to compete on price. It it wasn't until I started to connect what it is we did with where our customers were trying to go. And so
Mhm.
for an example, we did a ton of apartment complexes and maintained the landscaping on a bunch of apartment complexes. And these are 50, 100,000, $200,000 a year contracts, big
Mhm.
contracts. And so rather than saying, hey, we can save you 5% on landscaping maintenance, which is what most people do, we would say, hey, what is your occupancy rate for this property? Well, why do you ask? Well, the reason we ask is because we were at the Nashville Apartment Association meeting last week, and they're saying the average in this market is 92%. And where are you guys at? Well, we're at 88%. Okay, well, this may sound crazy, but we believe we can move you up a few points to 90% or 91% through landscaping maintenance. We can enhance the beauty of the entrance. We can enhance the beauty of the model and so on. And so and a lot of times we could deliver on that promise. And so that changed the whole conversation from a cheap way to get the grass cut to, okay, this is how we achieve our business objectives. And we did it for fast food restaurants, we did it for banks, we changed the conversation from landscaping maintenance to helping them partner on where they were trying to get to. It was harder to sell that. It took a
Mhm.
long time. It was harder to sell that way, but it led to a more durable customer and a longer lasting customer relationship.
Right, of course, because you were speaking to their interests, not just your
That's right.
need to sell a service,
That's right.
right. That's intelligent, and it's great that you're saying that because I've been running my mouth ragged about that this week online. So I'm glad that you're reinforcing that, and this is not staged, people. This is speaking from a professional who's been in business longer than me, okay? So,
Eventually, as founders and entrepreneurs, we come around to it anyway because we get tired of doing it the seemingly easy way. I
right,
spent 5 years complaining about competitors who were outpricing me, but I was selling a commodity service. I had to break out of that.
right, right. So you had to increase your value by speaking to their interest and giving them and essentially doing market research for them
That's right.
and intersecting your service and theirs.
Figuring out where they're trying to get to and how
Yeah,
you can help them get there.
yeah,
And it's harder work to do that. It's a lot
mhm,
easier to just cut margins and try to sell on price. The harder thing to do is to figure out what that value proposition is and key
yeah.
in on it and try to sell around it.
Yeah, no, for sure. So my next question to you is, at any point, did you ever conduct a SWOT analysis to get all these moving parts in place? Okay, so sorry about the malfunction, people. Before we dropped off, we were speaking about um before we dropped off, we were speaking about SWOT analysis. Were you able to conduct one for your business before you or while you were kind of trying to assess what was going on between you and your competitors?
Yeah, I have conducted a SWOT analysis a couple of times. One at first when I was getting started, and then I had a consultant come in and help me with one at another time. And I think business business planning is important. Things like SWOT analysis are important, but it's like Mike Tyson says, everybody has a plan till they get punched in the nose. And business planning is just like that. Like
Yeah,
no business plan survives first touch with the customer. And so all of these things that you have written down on your SWOT analysis or your business plan, they're assumptions, and it's important to go through them. It's important to planning it's an indispensable tool, but it really is just something to help you think through some of the things that you're going to be dealing with, and what really matters is how you think on your feet
yeah,
when you get into the game and get your first handful of customers, and then you adapt, and then you figure out, okay, what are the two or three things that are the most important in the business right now. Could be employee training, it could be employee recruitment, it could be marketing, it could be whatever systems you need to work on. To me, those things are the most important to focus on rather than going back to the drawing board to come up with a plan. For me, building a business has always been like an emergency room almost, where you're triaging around what are the two or three most important things right now. Let's work on them, and move on to the next.
right. No, that makes sense. Okay. So now you've built a successful business, you have a great customer base, you understand your competitors deep, somewhat deeply. What does that acquisition process look like? How does that conversation even start? Is it something you wanted, or did the opportunity just come to you?
Ideally, when you want to sell a company, sell your company, you work an exit plan. You proactively make a plan to get the business acquired at a certain point in time. And there's, whatever you begin with the end in mind, whatever that looks like, you then work backwards from that point. It could be a certain number of amount of sales, certain number of employees, certain number of market shares, certain, whatever metric you're trying to hit, and what the business looks like, you're making a plan to get there. That is not what I did. I thought I was going to run my landscaping company forever because it was profitable, it was growing, I was having fun doing it. But there was something I didn't realize that was going on while I was running the business. I was evolving into a whole new person every like year or two. Like as the business grew, I was having to grow alongside it. Yeah, I was having to learn things around leadership, management,
Mhm.
marketing, legal, all of these things. And I kind of reached a plateau where I wasn't evolving, I wasn't growing anymore, and I went about a year or two sideways. And I began to become discontent about that. The business was no longer like forcing me to grow. So I thought, man, well, maybe I can sell this company and then start something else. And so from the moment I had that notion of maybe I can sell this business to the time I was able to get it sold was a little over 2 years. And
Mm,
so I had to reverse engineer a lot of things into the business that I didn't have. I had to like take the business down to the studs and rebuild it from the inside out. And
mm,
so ideally, you work a plan like a 5-year plan. There's a great book called Built to Sell that talks a lot about this that I recommend, and it lays it out in a framework that's easy to follow. You can sell your business, but it's probably going to look very different than the way you're running it right now. At least that was how it was for me. I was kind of running my business as a lifestyle business, kind
mm.
of running it how I wanted to run it. And if you're gonna build a business that's going to be acquired, you're going to be managing it from the spreadsheet. You're going to be managing by the numbers. You're going to be really squeezing every ounce of profitability you can out of it because that's really all that matters.
Yeah, no, for sure. So did you use a broker, or was it, or did you find someone that knew someone who wanted to buy a landscaping business?
Yeah, for me, it was very much a managed process with a
Okay.
broker that worked in my industry. So that was one thing that really came to was to my advantage was I was able to find a broker that had the Rolodex of all of the players and was able to make 20 phone calls when we had the business ready for pitching, and
Mhm.
was able to generate half a dozen people interested in looking at it. And so if you can do that, whether you're in the home cleaning business or the pest control business, or you have a dry cleaning or shop or whatever, look for a broker that has spent their whole life in that one industry, because that can be helpful. That's how I was able to get my business acquired.
Got you. Okay. And what are some of the things that they're looking for? I know you said you're going to live in your spreadsheet and profitability is going to be a key factor, but could you get a little bit more granular on like some of those things? And I'm going to recommend that book for our book club. So we're going to go through it at some point for sure.
Awesome.
For the sake of the non-readers and the people who aren't going to do the homework, what else are some things that you need to look for?
Yeah, well, so many things. One is a lot of people say to me, "Well, I'm just burnt out. My business is just really stressing me out. Customers are stressing me out.
Mm,
I don't love running it anymore. I just want to sell it." That is not a place to begin the journey of trying to sell your business, because nobody wants to buy your handful of problems. They want to buy a well-oiled machine. You will not be able to sell your company if you feel that way about it, because that's the way I felt about it when I wanted to sell my company, and I had to rebuild it and get it to a point where I really loved it all over again. And so,
mm,
no, you don't hate your customers, because you've got a process in place that manages expectations and qualifies customers and brings the right customers on board. You're not at odds with your employees because you have a process and a system in place that recruits the right people and gets the right people on the bus and trains them and rewards them for falling in line into the system. And so
Mhm.
you don't know what that feels like.
Right.
Frustrated with my people. I'm not making any money and I'm not, there's more vendors to pay at the end of the month than I have cash in the company checking account, which I've been there. And no, that's not the place to start selling a business because your business is going to have to be super profitable. So you're going to do the hard work of renegotiating those vendor contracts, looking where you can make cuts, looking for things where you can bring things in house and so on. So you're going to go through the hard work of building a well-oiled machine that somebody else can just plug into their machine.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, I was where I couldn't take a vacation for longer than 24 hours because if I had come back longer than that, um, my house my business would be smoldering like a big bomb went off in the middle of it. So that was not a business that could be sold.
Right.
By
Yeah.
the time I got it all rebuilt, I could have left for a month and come back and it would have been fine. So a lot of it comes down to hiring key people, developing the systems that they can follow that you're kind of doing in your spare time, and you've never really codified it into a process that somebody else can repeat for you. And that's just hard work, and it's going to have to be done. And then the routines and this and the standard operating procedures in the business to where it runs. You ever wonder why you go to any McDonald's in the world and the Big Macs taste the same pretty much? You go to any location all over the country, and it's the same system. Well, they sell that consistency. They have refined that system, and you have to figure out a way to McDonaldize your business.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to buy something that is going to be like loosely managed and you just kind of being a one-armed paper hanger and just like organized chaos every day. So which is how most businesses run. So that's one thing. Another thing is just the way you run the business is very different. For example, like I had pride in how we ran our company. Like we kept our shop immaculate. It looked like a Ferrari dealership, even though we had lawnmowers in there. Like it was clean corner to corner. The
Mhm.
floor had a glossy like finish on it. The tools were all organized. We had the best tools, all these things, because I cared about that stuff.
Right.
Guess what? Somebody sitting in an office tower, 5 states away in Chicago or New York doesn't care about that stuff. And so,
Right.
so all of those things that you did as a business owner, because you had pride in them and which weren't necessarily like tied to delivering profitability, you need to cut that stuff out because you care about one thing, driving profitability. What is the end of the at the end of the day the net profit of the business, because that is what's going to make it viable to be acquired, and that's going to determine how much they acquire it for. That one thing and that thing only.
Right. So now you transition over to you sell the company and you transition over to a tech company. What made you not just ride off into the sunset? This was your moment. Like why go back into this space?
Well, I tried. I really thought that I was going to um, become like a deal maker, a capitalist. I read a book by Robert Kiyosaki called The Cash Flow Quadrant, and in that book he talks about these different types of business people, and you can be self-employed, you can be a business owner, you can be an investor,
Mhm.
uh, or you can, and so man, of these deals and they're just putting money to work and stuff like that. So I had to do it and then learned that there's no mission there. There's no why there. There's no reason to get out of bed in the morning. There's no purpose. And so that was gone. And so once again, I was like extremely discontent with how that felt. What I didn't realize was my last company was the reason why I got out of bed in the morning. If it wasn't for me, then what? And so I had to start another company to satisfy those things that I desired. And so I thought, well, I don't want to start another landscaping company. That was really hard, but I could start a tech business. That looks super easy.
Mm,
And boy, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't realize the first thing how challenging it is to get a tech company going. But made a plan, recruited two business partners, and we started working on the idea for what GreenPal should be, and never looked back. Took 10 years, but we finally have a nice nationwide marketplace going.
okay, good. And so what is your mission with GreenPal? So now that you found like that reignited purpose, what when you first thought of starting this tech company, what was your ultimate mission and vision for that company?
Yeah, it started off as one thing, and it's always been about one thing. That person that I was when I was 15, 16, 17 years old, just trying to get a lawn mowing business going, waking up at 5 a.m., sharpening lawnmower blades and mowing grass till dark, and then doing customer bookkeeping at night till 10 o'clock,
Mhm.
falling asleep on your kitchen table. That's the life of a small business owner in this industry. And so helping those folks make more money with less headache, not having to do bookkeeping, getting all the customers they want, getting paid within 24 hours is why we exist. There's around 35,000 of these small lawn care service providers that operate their business on the GreenPal platform. And even when it was only 10 of them, that was why we did what we did. It's how do we drive them more revenue, drive them more profitability, help them improve their livelihood on our technology, because it's our mission, and also their success is our success. And we take a small transactional fee for all the business done on the platform, and so if we can make their livelihood better, help them grow their business, our success follows.
Yeah, have you guys set any funding goals, or have you guys had any funding rounds for this tech platform?
We really looked at it in the early days. We really felt like we were going to start off on this journey that most every tech-based company does, where you raise a round of angel funding, and then you prove out some proof points, and then you raise a series A, B, C, D, and so on. And we tried that. We spent 6 months all over. We're from Nashville, Tennessee, so going all over Nashville, Tennessee. We even flew to New York, Boston, San Francisco, trying to generate interest, and it was just 1,000 no's. Nobody was interested.
Mm,
Even though I was a second time founder, I had never built a tech company, so there was that.
right.
It was still kind of early. This was before a lot of marketplaces that we use, like DoorDash or Instacart,
Yeah.
had really taken off. So it was really not really known that you would just get all these chores done from your smartphone.
Right.
So, and by the time, but a year went by, we wasted 6 months trying to pursue investor interest. We just said, you know what, let's just build a product that customers love and not worry about investors. And so we did that, and we were able to get to 1,000 customers. And then guess what? Venture capitalists started calling us. It's like, where were you guys a year ago when we really
Right.
needed you?
We needed you,
And,
right.
and at that time, I started observing that this was 2014, 2015. There was a lot of ideas like ours getting funding. So Uber for home cleaning, Uber for valet parking, Uber for laundry service, Uber for you name it, Uber for car washing. And
Right.
we're talking big amounts of funding.
Right.
5 million, 10 million, 20 million, $100 million. And so you would see Uber for home cleaning land $75 million. And I'm like,
Yeah.
golly.
I
And
know.
and then 18 months later, Uber for home cleaning shutters its doors. And it's like, damn, that was a founding team with a dream. That was a lot of investors' money down the drain. What went wrong? So I started connecting the dots that a lot of times venture capital destroys businesses
Yeah.
in as many instances as it helps them. And I thought, you know what? We're just going to go slow and low and build this thing off of its own revenues. And then I know that we'll never get sidetracked if we just stay the course, focusing on customers. And that's how we've gotten to where we are. We haven't raised any money, and we're profitable and growing 30-40% every year.
That's amazing. Those are great percentages. That's amazing. Okay, great. All right. So what would you say is your major takeaway as far as not only your Green Pal platform now, but to business owners who are looking to successfully exit a company?
Yeah, the first thing is really do begin with the end in mind. There's a book called The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. And that's one of the chapters where he talks
Yeah.
about begin with the end in mind. A lot of times, we can't even we can tell you what success doesn't look like, but it's hard for us to tell you what it does look like. And so if you really 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 try to like write that down, what does that look like? What people are in the business? What does the customer portfolio look like? What are the sales numbers? What are the operations look like? Even though it seems so far away, like write that down and like let's begin with that end in mind and let's work a plan from that point backwards, because if not, it's always just going to be a pipe dream. The second thing is, okay, so now you kind of have the end, you have it written down. That's like a goal.
Mhm.
But now that almost doesn't matter. What really matters is the daily habits, the systems, the processes, the routines that are going into the business. Really focus on those habits, on those almost like the routines that you're doing on a daily basis,
Yeah.
and tune those. Don't tune the goals so much anymore. Now let's tune the daily inputs on how we're going to get to the goal. Focus all your time on that, and what that looks like, and what that set of actions are, and then eventually you wake up in a whole new reality 2 or 3 years later.
Right. No, that's amazing. I love that. This has been a great episode for me, Bryan. You're speaking to like my business strategist heart. Okay. You covered all the market information. You talked about your competitor. Like you really covered the business, not just trying to promote your product, which I think is a great product. And it seems like you were ahead of the curve. And I'm sure you took great advantage of like COVID when COVID-19 happened. I'm sure you saw a great surge in your business because
It certainly helped us, and it was good to be a part of that. It was good. It was
yeah,
good to help business owners through that. So I really appreciate that. I appreciate you
yeah,
recognizing that, and
yeah,
appreciate you having me on your show. This has been a lot of fun.
yeah. No, of course, thank you. And I have a weird suspicion that and we're gonna speak again. This is not the last time we're.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When I get to the next milestone, I'll come back on and tell you how we did it.
Please, I would love that, like from the bottom of my heart. So thank you, Bryan. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Natalie. You have a good day.
Thank you.